Due to the recent killings in schools and in public demonstrations in the United States, guns have once again been put in the center of the attention of the public eye, not only in the United States but also worldwide. The arms industry is a big industry. It exports $1,800 billion worldwide, and the market for guns in the US is around $15 billion. On average, there are 20,000 gun-related deaths in the US per year. Main offenders tend to be from 18 to 24 years of age. Most suicides in the US are gun-related. However, if one looks at the impact of suicide in the society in itself, it is not the possession of guns which defines the suicide rate. There are countries where the suicide rate is very high that have a very high gun control rate and very strict measures to stop the usage of guns and arms, like Japan and South Korea. In this short video, I seek to present some of the reasons in favor of guns ownership, and some of the reasons against. I have identified 4 main reasons for, there might be more, and 4 main reasons against. Amongst the 4 reasons for, we have to consider the favoring of an industry that is useful in war. The second reason is personal protection against villains and brigands. The third reason considered is a pleasurable sport that gives a sense of power and satisfaction. And the fourth reason is a sense of security that gives peace of mind. Accidental killings is the first reason that I considered against the ownership of guns. Then I considered the non-civil violent use of guns at school shootings and at demonstrations. The third element that I consider is the increase of the crime rate due to a greater sense of power that is born from the ownership of guns. And the fourth element considered, the fourth reason considers, is the fact that the ownership of guns educates society away from civility and into a more barbaric, more violent community, which is against the purpose of many nations in our planet. It's against civilization. These are the 4 reasons against that I have considered. But let's start with the reasons for, and let's consider them one by one. First reason. A big gun market favors a war industry, which is very useful in what seems to be an habitual activity of man, to start wars with other countries. We have recently come out of the Cold War, and at the moment there is the war in Ukraine. So having a big arms industry is very useful for the independence and the well-being of a nation. The US market for guns, as said before, is $15 billion, and the world market for weapons, which is more or less 3.3 to 4% of the world GDP, is $1,800 billion. The main exporters of weapons are the US, France, Russia, China, and Germany. A big gun market permits a big weapons industry. A big weapons industry facilitates the role of world power and permits domination to a nation, which facilitates and favors one's economy and the well-being of one's citizens. The second reason considered is personal protection against brigands and villains. One of the reasons which is quite often cited during civil rights cases is the right to protect oneself from the aggression of others. This is the second reason which is strongly advocated for the bearing of arms, for the right to hold weapons and to use these weapons to defend oneself from others. The argument is that the police can't stop violence from happening, and since the police can't stop violence, I have the right to defend myself with guns and with weapons. The third reason is that it is a pleasurable sport that gives a sense of power. the pleasure of shooting at a target and hitting the target with precision. It's a sport, and many people enjoy the sense of power that comes with the sport. The fourth reason considered is that only the ownership of a gun gives a sense of security that gives peace of mind to an individual. That in itself, for many, is sufficient justification to own a gun. Now let's consider some of the reasons against. Certainly not all reasons that can be presented, but some reasons against. The first reason to consider is that the ownership of gun can give right to accidental killings. A great number of guns around facilitates, due to the simple law of probability, that at a certain point there will be an accidental shooting with possibly an accidental death, an unwanted death of an individual. On average, if one looks at the statistics in the United States, on 20,000 yearly deaths, which take place more or less in the US, 500 per year are due to accidental shootings. Considering that the population of the United States to date is more or less 300 million individuals, 500 individuals on a total of 300 million individuals is not much, is not really that relevant. But it is to be considered nonetheless as an issue. The second argument against a gun ownership that I considered is non-civil violent use of guns. For example, at school shootings. Recently on the news there were quite a number of school shootings, and on average there are 34 school shootings a year in the United States. Then there's also the shootings that take place in demonstrations in public venues that can create also a stir in the public opinion. Let us consider, however, the number of school shootings. 34 in a year is not many. It's mainly the sensationalism of these shootings which is used as an argument, rather than the number of people that are actually killed or harmed during the shootings themselves. The third reason against gun ownership is more serious. The fact that gun ownership makes an individual feel stronger, more powerful, might lead to a greater crime rate. This greater crime rate is the main problematic which rises from a vast number of people that own guns. Liberalization of guns, the facilitation of purchasing of guns seems to facilitate the crime rate in a country. Studies show that those states in the United States that have more lax gun control laws are subject to a higher crime rate. So there is in effect a correlation between laxity of gun control laws and crime rate. The fourth reason is maybe the reason I consider most relevant. Lax gun control laws facilitate a culture that's violent and so-called barbaric. If we want a civilized society, we have to limit the possession of weapons that can harm others to those that are authorized and to those which are specialized to their usage, which is the police. For that reason, I consider that gun control is particularly important there where we want an elevated society based on a higher concept of civilization. Once we have identified the reasons for and the reasons against, according to what we consider to be important due to our personality, we can as individuals decide whether we are in favor of gun control or whether we are against. I do not know the conclusion to which you have arrived, but in any case, I strongly encourage you to take initiative and write there where you are in a country that is in a situation that is different from your position. Write to members of parliament, to organizations, civil and educated letters which illustrate your reasons and your position. The whole idea is that reason civilizes, and the different arguments are there and have to be thought and have to be presented to the right decision makers. It is our civil and moral duty to do so in order to participate to a society, to a community that seeks a higher degree of civilization and a greater degree of prosperity. That said, I think that's all for today. I thank you for your company. I thank you for listening up to the end of this video. I hope that you have arrived to your own conclusions, and I hope that some of the reasons were of interest to your intellect and to your mind. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can receive more interesting videos which take into consideration current affairs and other interesting issues. Hope to see you soon. Have a good day. Bye bye.